Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tearing into a stack of really practical field notes. They should fundamentally change how you view one of the most common herbs out there,
Mhm.
mint.
Mint. It's the plant everyone jokes about, right? Impossible to kill, the garden bully trying to take over everything.
Exactly.
But what these specific sources show is, well, a surprising vulnerability. We're deep diving into the reality of mint management, especially how it reacts under intense heat stress.
And what makes these notes so useful, I think, is the context. The
Mhm.
author wasn't just, randomly growing mint. They were using it as a companion plant, specifically for portulaca.
Portulaca, which loves the sun,
Yeah.
a true desert plant.
Right. So if mint, planted right next to something that thrives in heat, is still struggling, well, that tells you the heat load the author was dealing with was pretty extreme, relentless even.
Precisely. The source material is basically a survival guide for mint in the heat. So, our mission today, let's quickly pull out those specific visual signs the plant shows when it's cooking, and the actionable three-part strategy the notes give for saving it. And maybe the most surprising bit, the conclusion about the type of gardener mint actually suits best.
Okay, let's jump right in then. So the mint is out there, sun's beating down, we know it's suffering. But how do we tell heat stress apart from, say, too much water or needing fertilizer? What are those key visual cues in the notes?
Well, the notes detail a pretty clear three-stage progression of distress when it gets really hot. It kicks off with simple wilting.
Just droopy leaves.
Yeah, exactly. The leaves look droopy, limp, especially during the hottest part of the day. That's basically the plant just struggling to move water fast enough to keep up with evaporation.
Uh-huh.
If you water it right then and it perks back up pretty quickly, you've caught it early.
It's good.
But if you miss that window, if you don't catch it,
That's when you slide into stage 2, the yellowing leaves. Chlorosis, technically.
yeah,
And this isn't just about water stress anymore. It's the plant actively, sacrificing parts of itself, the photosynthetic bits, just to survive. It's an urgent conservation mode. Wow. Okay.
and if the heat just keeps going, you hit stage 3,
Mm-hmm.
the browning, necrosis.
Yeah.
The leaves start browning, usually from the edges inwards. At that point, the actual cells are dying off.
And just to contrast that, what should a healthy mint plant look like so people have that baseline?
Right. Healthy mint should be vigorous, bushy, almost, aggressive in its growth. It should have that intense, deep greenish color, and of course that powerful characteristic minty smell.
Ah, the smell.
And that smell, that fragrance, is where this gets really interesting. The notes focus heavily on the consequences, not just how it looks. If you let your mint get to that yellowing or browning stage,
Yeah.
you haven't just lost some leaves or slowed growth.
Yeah.
You've fundamentally undermined why you're probably growing it. The critical loss here, it's the flavor.
Wait, really? The flavor goes first. Why? Is the
Wow.
heat literally burning off the flavor compounds or something?
It's actually a survival thing,
I
a
know.
really fascinating trade-off the plant makes. The mint aroma, the flavor comes from volatile oils, things like menthol, carvone, terpenes. Producing those oils costs the plant a lot of energy. So when it's under severe heat stress, its main goal shifts completely. It's not about growth or making tasty oils anymore. It's just about survival, water retention.
Right.
So it cuts resources to, well, luxury items. And those volatile oils, they're considered luxury. It dials production way down.
Huh. So you could have a plant that looks, I don't know, mostly green-ish, maybe a bit sad.
Yeah.
But if it's been heat stressed repeatedly, you go to make that mojito and it tastes like slightly damp grass.
Exactly, or just weak. The author noted, I remember, that the difference in smell between their shaded, happy mint and the heat-stressed batch was like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
The stressed leaves were faint, almost grassy, like you said.
Wow.
So if you're growing it to eat or drink, preserving that oil production is absolutely everything. And remember, the context, it failed, even next to portulaca, which should have offered some microclimate shielding.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
It tells us standard watering just wasn't cutting it. Not even close.
Okay, that makes the shift to solutions really critical then. Once we spot the problem, our mint is fading, losing its punch. The source material lays out this clear 3-part plan. Strategy 1 starts with the foundation, the soil. What's the advice there?
Right, strategy 1 is preemptive. It's all about moisture retention. The notes really hammer this home. Use a potting mix that's basically built like a sponge.
Okay.
Especially for mint in a container, you absolutely have to avoid those standard, fast-draining mixes. The ones loaded with perlite and bark that people usually recommend for pots. Forget those for mint in the heat.
So we want something that holds water for longer. But isn't that risky? Doesn't that increase the chance of root rot? Every gardening book warns about that.
That's the paradox, isn't it?
Uh,
And the notes actually tackled this exact point. Mint, especially in containers, especially under high heat, it's kind of the exception that proves the rule.
yeah.
You need a mix that's heavy in organic stuff, like compost, peat moss, cocoa coir stuff, that physically holds on to water molecules. The difference between moisture-retentive and just waterlog is usually aeration,
Nah.
right? But under intense heat, mint is using water so incredibly fast, the main danger shifts.
Yeah.
It's not root rot you need to worry about most. It's drying out completely, desiccation.
Ah, okay.
So the author suggested prioritizing a mix heavy on peat or coir, something that guarantees that constant dampness right at the root zone.
That's a really subtle but important distinction. Okay, so get the soil right. That's strategy one. Then we move to the most direct action, watering. Strategy number two. If the soil's built to hold moisture, how often are we talking? Daily.
Frequency. That's
Yeah.
the key word here. The notes absolutely stress that frequent watering is non-negotiable for beating heat stress. The author was growing this in what sounds like a subtropical climate, high, constant heat, and the observation was crystal clear. Waiting for the top inch of soil to dry out, which is standard advice for most plants. It's way too late for mint when the temperature climbs over, say, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius.
But hang on. Water frequently and use moisture-retaining soil. That sounds like it's just going to be constantly saturated. That goes against pretty much all standard container gardening advice.
It does sound like high-risk gardening, doesn't it? But this is where the deep dive context is so important. This advice is specifically for mint under heat stress.
Okay.
In that exact scenario, the plant's own high transpiration rate, the water evaporating from the leaves, acts like a natural safety valve against root rot.
Ah, I
The water just moves through and out of the plant so fast, the roots don't really get a chance to sit in stagnant water and rot. So the prescription is specific. Frequent, deep watering, making sure the soil never completely dries out, especially in those really hot tropical or peak summer conditions.
Okay, that makes sense. The plant is basically using the water before it becomes a problem for the roots. So what's strategy number three then?
Strategy 3 is the preventative shield, mulching. And the notes give it two really critical jobs. First, the obvious one. A layer of mulch drastically cuts down on surface evaporation.
Right, keeps the moisture in the soil longer.
Exactly. Helps your moisture-retaining soil do its job for longer. But second, and this is often overlooked, mulching physically shields the top layer of soil, and crucially, the root crown from direct sun.
So it's not just about keeping water in, it's like sunscreen for the roots, thermal protection.
Precisely. Mint roots are fairly shallow, especially in a pot. When intense sun hits the dark surface of soil in a container, that soil can get way hotter than the air temperature. It can literally cook the roots.
Ouch.
A simple layer of mulch, the author liked using lightweight stuff like wood chips or shredded leaves, creates an insulating barrier. It keeps that root zone cooler, more stable. And that lets the plant focus its energy on growing and making flavor instead of just desperately trying to survive.
That ties everything together nicely. Which brings us to maybe the most surprising conclusion in these notes. It connects all these demanding needs, the special soil, the constant watering, the mulching back to us, the gardeners. What did the notes say about who mint is actually suited for?
Yeah, this is the part I really love. We're constantly told, the biggest gardening sin is overwatering. Check the soil, wait, hold back, don't love your plants too much with the hose.
Right, be careful, don't drown them.
But this source explicitly identifies mint, specifically mint under heat stress, as a suitable plant for gardeners who, well, tend to overwater.
Get out! Really? So the gardening flaw of being maybe a bit too enthusiastic with the watering can suddenly become a feature, a good thing.
Absolutely. The author's conclusion totally reframes that relationship. If your natural tendency is to water daily or maybe every other day, and you kind of struggle with that benign neglect approach, mint, under these conditions, is actually perfect for you, provided, of course, you've got that moisture-retentive soil set up. Your behavior naturally aligns with the plant's intense need for water when it's battling serious heat. So instead of constantly fighting your urge to water, you can channel that energy into keeping your mint thriving, bushy, robust, and importantly, flavorful.
That is a fantastic piece of validation for the more attentive gardener, let's say.
Yeah.
It really seems like the big takeaway here is that even mint, the plant we think of as indestructible, invasive even, is actually incredibly demanding.
It really is.
It demands strict, frequent moisture management if you actually want it to deliver on its promise. Vigorous growth, and crucially, that strong, volatile flavor. You just can't rely on its tough guy reputation when the heat cranks up.
It's such a vital lesson in gardening nuance, isn't it? And about prioritizing the quality of what you grow, not just whether it survives. And this really raises an important question for you, the listener.
Yeah.
If mint, which is practically programmed to spread like crazy, needs such careful, active moisture management and heat protection just to keep its essential character, well, what other hardy herbs or vegetables might you be unknowingly compromising?
That's a great point. We often assume that anything sort of Mediterranean, rosemary, thyme, oregano is automatically drought-proof, heat-proof, because that's where they come from.
Exactly. They might survive high heat and drought, sure.
Yeah.
But are they really thriving? Are you getting the best from them? You might be sacrificing flavor intensity or maybe flower production just by assuming they can tough it out through weeks of high heat without extra help.
Hmm.
Maybe consider taking these protective measures we've talked about, focusing on moisture-retaining soil amendments, using mulch strategically to cool the roots, targeted and more frequent watering just during those peak heat waves, and apply them more broadly. Even to your supposedly tough culinary herbs, you might find your summer harvest suddenly tastes a whole lot better.